Anyone with school-age children will tell you, kids can be amazingly talented. We've heard for some time now that violence from Juarez is spilling over into El Paso. There's another investigation involving another El Paso police officer. They were without power for more than 8 hours during the winter storm. 60% from the field, but the most important thing I saw was the 7 assists. He was really dishing it out.
A Juarez bar here on the U.S.-Mexico border was the wrong place to be last night.
That might take a little while. Would you maybe consider just annexing the mall for now? So now the question is, what's next for EPISD and its superintendent?
And this is why I like college basketball much more than college football.
His family has been waiting for any word on what happened to Lalo, as they called him. I know a Hall of Fame pitcher that's going to have a lot of time on his hands. The second time this same plane has made an emergency landing in a week. We're learning more about the woman whose involvement with Superintendent Garcia led to his arrest on Monday.
It's been the hot topic for the last 24 hours. Yeah. Tim Floyd has now joined the likes of Bob Knight and others with their epic explosion. The main concern, though, is that they wouldn't have him for tomorrow's game, the biggest game so far.
But the attorney for the commissioner says they had no idea that they weren't supposed to meet. The city of El Paso to a standstill for a second straight day, and it looks like it'll remain that way. Pastor Tom Brown is never afraid to voice his opinion on gay issues, but one of his most controversial claims is that he can convert gay people back to being straight.
Forgive me if I'm a little out of breath. It's a little hard to breathe. You can see the smoke coming out. There's a large brush fire.
Parents' worst nightmare: load your child in the car, then go back into the house for something, only to come back out and find that your car with your child still inside stolen. Not everyone was happy with Secretary Napolitano's progress report. During opening arguments, the defense announced that Luther Jones would take the stand in his own defense. But the agreement has yet to be signed by the ones who matter, the players. Today's verdict ends the 13-week trial of a man many say should have been tried for murder. Thought by many to be one of the world's most dangerous terrorists, an elated Luis Posada Carriles flashed a peace sign after a federal jury acquitted him on all 11 counts of perjury. He'd been charged with lying about his role in a series of bombings in Cuba in 1997 and about how he entered the U.S. in 2005.
This trial was not a vindication of any kind of violence towards Cuba. This trial was a statement of whether or not the government had proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Posada Carriles had lied.
Some Cubans are outraged that Posada Carriles was not on trial for murder after he admitted to the New York Times that he was the mastermind behind a hotel bombing 13 years ago that killed one person. Loved by Cuban exiles and hated by communist governments, Posada Carriles is also thought to be responsible for a Cuban airline bombing that killed all 73 passengers in 1976. Venezuela wants him extradited for that bombing. The U.S. probably won't let that happen, though, and it appears he'll stay in the U.S.
I love this country. I want to live in this country. I see liberty at the end of my life. I have no ambitions in Cuba.
With his perjury trial over, Carriles hopes he can live out the rest of his life away from the international spotlight.
We ask only to allow him to live out the last remaining days of his life in peace and to leave him alone.
And Posada Carriles says he hopes to live long enough to one day see the beaches of his homeland again. But at 83 years old and still public enemy #1 in Cuba, the odds are stacked against him. Live in the newsroom, Phillip Mena, News Channel 9. The Secretary of Homeland Security was in the borderland today, telling El Pasoans the strategy to secure the border is working.
I have one.
You do?
I did get Kentucky.
Kentucky.
I got Kentucky.